Just a quick note before we get into this. Recently, NWS St. Louis said at a conference that they will be making major adjustments to this tornado's path and width. This video was made and researched before any of those changes were implemented, so any corrections and addendums will be in the pinned comment if those changes are made. So, I might have underestimated how much they were going to update this tornado. Less than an hour after I set up the video to go up tomorrow at 4 p.m., NWS St. Louis finally put out their update to the St. Louis tornado from last year, and it was a lot. So, just to kind of give you an idea, here's the DI map from when I made the track animation back in April, and here it is now. Yeah, a lot happened. Before I go into this, and I will say this at the end, there is no shame to NWS St. Louis for what they did. This was an incredibly detailed survey, and this should be, like, a very high standard for how damage surveys are done. I'm really proud of them for doing what they did with this tornado, and honestly, there isn't much else to say besides that. A lot of blood, sweat, and probably tears went into putting in the extra DIs, because there's, like, over 10,000 of them now. But it should be stated here that this is mostly just a skill issue on my end, and not on NWS St. Louis's end. And as I mentioned in video, the video was written, edited, and put up before these changes were implemented. By uploaded, I mean the time I uploaded it, not the time the video was actually going to go up. So in terms of DIs, over 10,000 new damage indicators were added. And other DIs that were likely there were probably updated too, if I had to guess. Mainly, more EF3 DIs were made, the polygon is larger, and then there was just a ton of additional damage indicators in general, holy hell. So, what changed here? Well, the St. Louis EF3 was actually two separate tornadoes. The main EF3 tornado was on the ground from 2:39 to 3:53 p.m., or for around 14 minutes. The peak width of the tornado changed from just under a mile to 1.8 miles, which makes this the widest tornado to hit a major metropolitan area, if I recall correctly, and the path length is now 12.29 miles. Here's what didn't change about the tornado. The death toll and injuries are the same for the EF3, and the maximum estimated winds are the same at 152 miles per hour. Now let's talk about the Granite City EF1 real quick. That tornado was on the ground from 2:50 to 3:05 p.m., which means that if they were still the same tornado, I got the minutes wrong in the final video by saying it was on the ground for 27 minutes. It would have been 26. Which, in fact, I actually got right in the bio segment, but not when I was writing. That's just me being stupid, don't worry about it. But in this case, this tornado was on the ground for 15 minutes, traveling 11.64 miles with a peak width of 525 yards and estimated peak winds of 107 miles per hour. Injuries and fatalities from this tornado is 0. Now, you may be wondering, given I have about 24-ish hours before the video goes up, you may be wondering if I'm going to render it over again. Dear God, no! But first, let me explain as to what this update affects in terms of the video. The final tornado count goes up by 1, so at least 30 tornadoes touched down that day. The entire segment of the St. Louis tornado is outdated. All of the track animations, yes, plural, you'll see what I mean in the video, is now outdated for the St. Louis tornado, meaning I gotta spend around 1 to 2 hours reanimating it and making sure it's correct. Not to mention, most of the St. Louis tornado summary is now outdated, so I would have to cut out everything past Granite City and rewrite the summary from before then. And because I have to rewrite the summary, I have to reanimate and re-edit the whole segment. Damage analysis would, I think, be mostly unaffected, other than the fact that there are more EF3 DIs screwing over some segments and that the Granite City segment of the damage analysis is from a completely separate tornado. There would be a lot that I'd have to change in less than 24 hours. Would it be possible? Maybe. But I also got to consider that I have to wait at least 4 hours for HitFilm to render the project again, because HitFilm takes forever to render Google Earth Studio MP4s, and for some reason it really hates Jack Kelly's footage from Sykeston. I then got to, on top of additional research and writing over part of the script again, have to watch the video after it renders to make sure there aren't any editing errors, then re-upload it to Patreon and YouTube, which takes about an hour each. Again, would this be physically possible? Yes, but I would probably be running on very little sleep tomorrow and be so stressed during the fixes that it would be detrimental to my own well-being. Some of you are also asking, I could just delay the video and just not upload it on the anniversary. But I'm also poor and desperately need to get this video to do well, and uploading on anniversary dates tends to perform just a tad bit better than usual from what I've noticed. I also could be completely wrong here. I'm not a know-it-all regarding how YouTube recommends videos, if you couldn't tell by how my videos have not been doing well over the past year. Here's what I will do, because I don't want this to ruin the legacy of the video that I spent a long time on. I will, at some point after I get back from chasing, assuming things stay the same, I will make a video on the second channel or the main channel that will be a complete overhaul of the St. Louis Tornado segment. It may even be a standalone video on the subject as a whole that acts as a mini-documentary where I can go even further in my research. But I also don't want to make that a habit where I milk stuff I've already covered. That update video will be in the pinned comment of the May 16th video once I get that done. This video you are watching now will also be linked in that pinned comment and in a card on screen before I go into the St. Louis Tornado itself. When will that updated segment come? I have no idea, but probably sometime in June or July after I get done with orientation at UGA. Before I end this off, I don't want people to bash NWS St. Louis or any of their staff for this happening. This was pretty much entirely on me. I knew an update was coming, I knew it was going to be big, and I decided to make the video anyway. I have the utmost respect for the members of NWS St. Louis who put blood, sweat, and probably tears into adding so many DIs and doing so much additional research. If anything, I think this is a high standard that they have set up for damage surveys that I wish could be done more often. That being said, I'm Opharia, you all have a good one, and I'm off to cry myself to sleep for how badly timed this ended up being. Again, no harm or ill will to NWS St. Louis, this was bound to happen at some point.